Hello, my dear friend, and welcome to the Spiritually Engineered podcast, where we take a deep dive into the human experience from a spiritual perspective. Come on in, and I invite you to stay. If you're going to be spiritual, tell jokes. These are the words that my mentor and teacher would say at his course and retreat offerings that he have throughout the year, whether it be in person and virtual. And I think that's something that's so important. And in a lot of sense, too, a lost art, the way I see it. So I recently read this book that a good friend of mine, and actually another mentor of mine, I have a lot of mentors. I have connects with people. So, if you ever, one of the things I suggest is like if you can have like many mentors, not just one, although it's not for everybody. I think it's good that, as a side note, to have like more than one mentor, but not to overdo it, because it's good to hear different perspectives because a lot of people have a lot to offer. And it can be limiting, not necessarily, it's mostly beneficial, to have a mentor who can teach you and, to help to give you inspire you, support you, things like that, all for the purpose of being able to live a better quality of life. But anyway, that's just a little side note there. But one of my other mentors, who I actually meet more frequently, on a month-to-month basis, she when I was at summer camp, where I seen her in person, because she's other part of the state. She's more south in the states, and we connected, and I remember like right around the time when I was leaving the retreat that I was at. It was like a summer camp retreat last year, of 2024. Let's see, 2024. I had received a book that was called Lighten Up: Survival Skills for People Under Pressure. And the authors is by C.W. Metcalf and Roma, I might butcher this last name, but Felible. I don't know. I don't think it's Felible. But anyway, this is a book that I was reading slowly. I was digesting slowly and very intentionally. And there was a lot of important things that were shared like in the book that I actually wanted to use this opportunity to share in this episode. Because I know for myself is that, when it comes to my spiritual journey and working through storms that can come in various waves and intensity and things like that, when life, as I've heard people say, when life be lifing, it gets real heavy real quick. And when it's heavy, it's hard to get out. I don't know if you can relate with that. I'm wagering and saying that you probably do and you can relate, because it's part of the human experience. I think it's something as a collective we experience in a variety, in our own way. And it is so crucial to be able to develop that sense of humor, or to the ability to lighten up, as the book's, as the title of the book is, Lighten Up, because it's in that place of when things get really heavy. It's like a lot of stress that affects the body, both spiritually and materially. All it does, if not handled correctly, if not addressed, if it can lead down to just a lot of suffering in all kinds of ways. Physical diseases, mental illness, a lot of things, and there are a lot of factors too that I want to preface and say that, because I want to talk about the importance of like why it's good to have humor, and that a sense of humor, and that's something that what the author was saying here, that everybody has humor skills and they can develop it. You know, um, I don't know. I was losing my train of thought here where I was gonna go with it, but okay, now I remember. Is it that there are such certain situations where some people can't like work on it because of actual like problems that like for example addiction, which is something that the author actually talks about in his own journey of his humor journey of lightening up. It was an obstacle type of thing. So I just want to acknowledge that that nobody, like not everybody's in a position to be able to like, especially like with the stuff that I'm going to be talking about in this episode, to be at that point yet. Especially like if you're dealing with mental mental illness challenges, things like that occupy your mind and stuff like that. I think it's definitely important to consider like, like, okay, how can I address this so I can feel more at ease more often, in a better state, more stability, if you will, mentally inside within. I think that's an important thing to strive towards. And then when things start to shift in a better way, say for example, like to overcome like an addiction. That's just one example, right? Or a situation where it can be tough. Is just to kind of seek out help when it's necessary, but be it friend or professional. You know, definitely don't try to handle it on your own. Don't try to like, because I always, when I share with people, I'm always big about like personal empowerment and like personal freedom and power, responsibility. But I also know in the same token that people, we need each other to support each other and to help each other on our journey. And we all have a place for that, And I think that's an important thing to consider and to tap into that resource and to not listen to any excuses to justify being lonely or feeling lonely when there can be opportunities to either connect with friends or even build new ones that can really be helpful and supporting. Because definitely, I know in my life, I've had families and friends who've come through for me that's helped me through really rough patches. So I just want to kind of talk about that a little bit first as an acknowledgement, as an awareness, so that because everybody's at different places, everybody's having different challenges, experiencing different lessons, and just something important to have an awareness of. But if you feel like you're in a relatively good space, not dealing anything extreme, then you'd be in a good, you're in a good position to be able to work on it. Because the way I see humor is like a muscle. Just like I look at confidence. It's something that we develop through being involved in life and also evaluating our experiences and looking at celebrating those areas where we have grown, where we've have achieved some kind of victory in our own personal battles and within ourselves, and that progress, that those small steps in being a better person, because a better human being, or a more evolved soul, as I would put it. Because like I say, for me growing up, I've always, like, part of, I think, my conditioning and part of like how what I was taught was to really be so serious about a lot of things, especially because it kind of like stemmed from like my education growing up. I went to private school from middle school to college, and I've had to work through pressures. I mean, even parts of elementary school, work through pressures of just like academic success, where because of for the purpose of having life success and stuff like that. Like at least the motive, like the pressure that I would experience, and then it's rough, man. Like to be able to kind of, it's, I'm sure you could probably relate from experience that it's not pleasant when things are heavy and crazy, and something that uh, I want to dive into the book Lighten Up. There's a couple takeaways. I mean, there's a lot of them, but there's a couple here that I've written down that off the top of my head, I was trying to look back to see, okay, what's the key things that I got out of, and one of the big things that I wanted to talk about was one of the things that I got from the book was like to take my challenges serious. So like honoring when those moments really do get heavy, and not like, oh no, this is heavy, I gotta avoid it, or I have to fix it or do something, but rather just like embracing it, acknowledging it. Okay, I'm having heavy experiences here. And but then it's like the other piece to that is like take my challenges serious, take myself lightly. And that was an eye-opening thing for me, where it's like I always had this, like, to me, the fact that the author kind of distinguishes, like, wait, I can take my work seriously, but and still take myself lightly. I thought I have to be all serious all the time. Like, there's a phrase that he always talks about, like, yeah, like there's this common idiom where it's like, work hard, play hard, work hard, play hard. But even then, he kind of opened my eyes on that, where it's like now I'm at a place where it's like, rather than just rather than just work hard, play hard, why not work hard, just play? Why can't it just be play for the sake of play and not have to get so serious or extreme about it? You know, it's like this is a feeling of like trying to force it, trying to force something. You can't force to bring out what's innate, like to get into that play, to get into the fun. You can't force it, especially when it comes to joy too. You can't force it. It's something that it's just like it comes out just through practicing, through working on that relationship with the self. It takes time. But again, the key thing I want to stress on that is like it's not about having to like to force. That's the very important thing. And so back to the other point I was talking about is like, take my challenges serious, but take myself lightly. How what can that look like? You know, and and it's interesting because I just came back out of a multi-day festival called Introfusion. It's a it's a whole the way I my understanding of it is like it's a holistic, very dance theme, um, movie embodiment, mindfulness, a lot of like the spiritual education, spiritual aspects of like living, of just the component, just a lot of workshops, all geared towards helping people have a good time and better themselves. And something that I think the example I wanted to talk about is so that there's a lot of experience that I might draw from this from my time at the festival because it's pretty awesome. I've definitely grown a lot from having been involved and surprised in a lot of ways of what had unfolded and developed while I was there. Is that I remember there's so there's this thing that happens, this tradition with the festival where a couple days into, like maybe like the day before the last day of the festival, there's a thing called the cuddle party, and it's like, and it's almost perhaps what you may think, but it's not something like it's not something that's meant to be sexual, especially like with the people, with a crowd of people up to like a couple hundreds of people in one big crowded room in a hotel room. It's like all fit together, like a lot of people with PJs or comfy clothes and stuff like that, all snuggling and stuff like that. An orgy of cuddles, if you will. And I might talk more a bit about that concept because it's very interesting. Just that, but there was so the people that were there facilitating this cuddle party, because that's kind of how the setup is, to have someone to kind of hold the energy, to be a support system, so that people that are involved have a good time and they feel safe, and you know, having fun and feel safe, and and are able to express and just show up as they are, as they want to, whoever's involved, whoever's a part of the cuddle party, and one of the things that I think was pretty powerful, that I think kind of ties into like, okay, what is taking my challenges serious? Oh, actually, no, I don't want to allude to that specifically. I think I'm actually going to bring another example, but something that I think was important to have that playful lightness, because that's really I think what we're trying to get to when I talk about humor, is just to have this attitude where it's just like, okay, so back to that example that I said it wasn't going to relate, but the part was I take myself lightly, not take myself too serious. That specific part. The so there was so there's a part so when the facilitators, they talk about a couple guidelines so that people are on the same page and that there's clarity and there's no ambiguity or any misunderstandings, um, in that process, in this activity. And I remember one of the things that's encouraged in the cuddle space is that for people to set their boundaries and say like, hey, we go through an exercise, we all experience rejection. We tell each other like, hey, would you like to cuddle or something like that? Or like we initiate a prompt, a question, and then the person will say no, and everybody does it with each other in the room. So that, and then the facilitator talked about like, oh, how like okay, we've all been rejected, so we've gotten the worst fearful thing out of the way. It's like rejection. Ugh. And they mentioned the example of like, you know, of just like as we're going around, of just like they were kind of bringing us an example like, oh, what if you just find somebody um like that? I think the question was like, just kind of go around, people ask if there, anybody would like, like an invitation to kiss. And there was like an example of like this person, the facilitator and their co-facilitator were like riding on bicycles, right? Like little kids. It's like, just because that was the prompt that people were asking, just that like as an exercise of setting a boundary. And and so they were giving an example of like how like they were like little kids riding little tricycles, and then they'll go to a group of kids, a first group of kids, and be like, hey, you guys want to ride our tricycles? And then the group of kids would be like, no, okay. And then they'll go together again, like they're just kind of leading like an example. There's a kind of a teaching moment of just, okay, let's keep riding, let's keep riding. And then they'll go to a second group of kids. Oh, you guys want to ride our tricycles? Come on, join us. And then another group of kids would be like, no, okay. And then the two will go off. Again, they were kind of going to explain this little situation, little story. And then they find the third group, and it's like, hey, would you guys like to try our tricycles? Yeah. And then they're like, all right. And so then they kind of hang around and do stuff, in the little example that they were sharing, this little tricycle example. And why I bring that up is it's because, in that process of like, say you create this invitation, of like to do something with somebody, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like intimate related, per se, but it's like, hey, you want to go play with me? I want, or even in the context that I'm familiar with, like dancing. If I like approach somebody like, hey, would you like to dance? And they say no, that rejection can hurt to the extent that I take how much I take myself as far as like seriously, like, or too serious, or the level of gravity that I place on myself. So it's like if I take myself too serious, then I'm gonna handle rejection pretty bad. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna even wound. But if I embody that of a child, like, okay, I have a game, I'm playing with a friend, I want to invite more people. Boom, boom, boom. All right, hey, you want to play? Hey, let's play swords with me. And then you would get a rejection. No, okay. And so, like when you observe little kids, like they don't make a big deal. I mean, I'm sure there are kids that don't, they don't make a big deal about rejection. They don't deal with rejection like as adults we do, because it's like it's all about the the fun and play. It's not about like, oh shoot, I was, it's not about taking it personal. And I think that's where taking it personal, I think, is kind of like I see an association between that and taking myself too serious. And in the context of like, say, a rejection, like say you invite somebody to do something, to hang out, or you invite them out on a date or something, whoever this person is, right? Some kind of invitation, but it's met with a no, a boundary. And developing the humor skills to be able to shed some light on a situation is a very powerful thing. Yeah, that's like building resilience with life. When life and situations be coming up, it can be a very powerful tool. And I would say that and I also just want to acknowledge that, it's one thing to say it, to talk about it, right? But then it's another to actually experience it. But I've had my fair share of experiences to have, you know um, that I've overcame some big heavy stuff. That's it enabled me to be able to talk about this right now. And there may be areas that, that perhaps I can always kind of strengthen and develop my humor muscle, or like this ability to just lighten up capacity. And so I think that's something that, to give some context to why it's important, that takeaway of like, take my challenges serious, but take myself lightly, you know, like using that example of like rejection. Um, Taking myself, too serious also shows up in a form for me of like being critical of myself. One example could be like, maybe I had an exchange, or an encounter with another person. I said something or did something. I look back, I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Right? Maybe I'm talking to a crush. I'm like, oh, why did I say that or do that? What idiot? Oh, and you idiot, you're stupid, man. Ugh. That right there is a symptom of taking myself too serious. Boom. So And I think another association that I want to draw from that is like being critical. When I'm being critical of myself, I'm taking myself too serious. Because something I want you to understand is that we're all having experiences. We're spiritual beings having human experiences, and we're all in our own process of growth and discovery. It's not Life is not about you have to get it right the first time or you have to get it perfect or all this stuff, because that wouldn't make life fulfilling if it was like that. It's through the trials and the mistakes and the messes that come up from our own situations and experiences that we've had, are the choices we make. They all have a part to play that can, when we look back on it and reflect on it, and this is a practice too, mind you, to even do this, to kind of reflect on this, can help build that inner security, that the inner playfulness, that light within, you know, to be that shining lit candle in the dark, in a what may seem like a predominantly dark world out there. When we look at news and stuff like that, I'm sure. I mean, yes, there are reasons to justify, but again, they can just be excuses holding us back for us to live our best life, um, and I don't want to get too much into like, oh, I mean, we all have a place to be able to help each other out, and that is important. And I think even just like educating how to like reflect and meditate and things like that, hey, it's like I get that, I hear you, I see you, you know, and I'm in that process of like myself. I'm stepping into my own shoes as an educator to be able to offer these tools and stuff like that. Part of like what I'm doing with this podcast and then brainstorming on other ways that I can help people so that they can help themselves, so they can live a more, uh, a richer, more fulfilling life. Because that's what we all desire, if not most. It's just we desire that within us. So that was definitely an important point that I took away from like reading that book. And another one was when the going gets tough, the tough lightens up. And it's kind of and it kind of plays along with very similar to what I mentioned earlier about the whole this collective idea of like, oh, work hard, play hard, but instead it's just, well, how about work hard and just play, or work hard with play, kind of integrate some play into what you do. That way you're not just doing things like as if like you have to like grind your teeth for something that's unnecessary, just to kind of to work through challenges. Why not have engage in the dance rather than like, I don't know, rather than getting swept away in a storm, or just kind of, being that collateral damage in the storm type of thing, but just dancing in the rain with grace, even in all the mess and whatever's going on, just. And I think that's a very important one, because, one thing I've learned is that you can never, when it comes to like overcoming your challenges, you're not going to get there by stressing yourself about it. You can't stress yourself into solutions type of thing. That all comes from a place of just like composing, grounding in the self, relaxing, allowing the storms to pass, and then just using those opportunities to evaluate. Okay, what's something what challenges have I gone through today? Anything that's come up for me, stuff like that, what I would do differently. Anything that I've been reminded of today that something came up for me. I'm kind of touching on some questions that, at least I ask myself when I look at my day, just for a few moments, for a few minutes. I never try to take too much time with it, because it's not like a good 10 minutes to just evaluate one's day is all that's needed. Honestly, it's not a whole lot. It's not to be like a painful process to reflect. Um, if you feel like it's like a struggle, I mean, I think it's important to just to invite some play into it. And I think that's something that I got from the festival, and why looking back on my life that I found a conscious community, like conscious dance, and eventually heard about this festival, uh, is the importance of play and fun. So it's like there's like this. We have like these classes to help. That are about improvement and looking at life from a different perspective. Having these workshops to kind of have as teaching tools and teaching moments for all the participants and stuff like that. And but I remember I was like, when I was like making my way down to the dance floor, and I was just like reflecting on just like where I'm at. I'm like, yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm involved, because that play is necessary. Again, it's like if you're gonna be spiritual, tell jokes. It's like, and I'm not. You don't have to take that necessarily serious. Like, okay, you have to tell. Okay, when life gets crazy and stuff like that, oh, I gotta tell jokes. Not necessarily. I mean, you could, but what I'm wanting to get at is just the essence of that, of that lightness and humor. To look at the again, a phrase that I'm going to use from the book that I read, the absurdity and adversity. Just to be able to have that, to practice doing that, to see that, you know, it's it's practice. Like I said, it's like a lot of stuff that I shared is it's not easy, but it's definitely worth it. Given that there's so many reasons, and for me, I sometimes can be excuses to feel down and dull, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I think, and then the reason why it doesn't have to be that way, and why we can tap into this powerful skill that's like nothing short of a miracle, is because of our own personal, like our own free will, like our own personal power in that. You know, imagine to be able to like, imagine just going down this flight of stairs and you fall and you bust yourself and you got some bumps and bruises, and maybe you might have broken something. But if you can come out of that and just be like, oh wow, I just got down the stairs quicker. After all that happened, man, that right there, that's powerful right there. That's and and I think that's something that all of us can work towards, can be at that space, at that place, at that level where yes, the tough times will come. It's part of life, the ups and downs. But I think what really where that growth is like to be able to like handle situations that normally will stress us out so much, but doesn't stress us as much anymore. Doesn't have a hold on our energy anymore. There's a lot of healing that comes about from that. At least I know for myself. I mean, one of the big things that was a teaching moment, and a growth moment for myself, that I think relates to just like that lightness and play. And I talked about it on the previous podcast episode called "Into the Storm," I believe is the title. Um, I did it in two parts, but it's basically, long story short, my testicular cancer journey and what I had to go through, and surgery, and the whole crazy thing that I had to go through myself last year, that had an impact on me, you know. And here I am talking to you and sharing, and having allowed that experience, um, when I was going through it, to say I'm gonna make it through. It's like having this hope and this belief, that I think are super important to feel inside. And for me, I just have done a lot of work on myself, where it's just like, again, this is just I'm saying as a form of reverence, and I encourage you to look at your own situations, your own personal challenges that you've overcome, that you never thought much about, and it's just like, wait a minute, I actually made it through this thing. Yeah, you did. Be proud of yourself. Pat yourself on the back, because that's no small feat. Whatever, if you're listening to this, you are already doing great, because I'm sure you've gone through some hardships, some stuff in your life. to some varying degree, and yet you're still here. If that doesn't, it doesn't say any indication of your personal power, I don't know what will. So you got it, you know, you've got this type of thing. And yeah, and so this is one of those things that it's just going to be an ongoing process, and like this dance in the storm is really like a life process that we all go through. And I think what's important is that if you cultivate, think about having a better relationship with yourself, being more supportive of yourself, less critical, more gentle with yourself, more patient with yourself, to sit with yourself, even just like, even like just kind of sitting like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, or even, it doesn't require a whole lot to just kind of be with yourself and not do anything. No phone, no technology, no nothing. And just kind of be with, and maybe kind of do some creative activity, make something, get into something that's gets you in that play, get into your childlike part. Like, oh, I'm going to have some fun doing this. Oh, this is so cool. Oh yeah, I'm having fun. Because fun is an important thing. It's a difference between living and just existing. Having fun on a daily basis, that's power. Because that's what we got right now. It's just like we got routines here day in and day out. Now imagine be able to like, you know, have that kind of play, into whatever it is you do. Let's make it fun. Because if it's not fun, why what it's not worth doing that thing if it's not fun, whatever that is. Take it like in the work setting or wherever you are in your own personal setting. It's important to just lighten up. Um, and I also want to talk about something else too, kind of going back when I mentioned hardships and stuff like that. I've heard comics say that comics, like stand-up comedy, I remember like, the one comic was like sharing how like if you never have like, no, he was like saying that if you never, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's like if you never had like a rough childhood, abusive parents or something, or some kind of very extreme challenge, um, stand-up comedy is going to be tough for you. Or it's like this talk about like a lot of stand-up comics, maybe even well known, like a good amount of them have some history growing up, like a tough childhood and stuff like that. Some kind of form of adversity, if you will. But the beautiful thing I love about those, comic or comedies, because it's like using the value, the tool of humor to kind of to sprinkle some humor on tough situations that normally are pretty serious. And I think the jokes that really are funny and hilarious is, especially, and this is where I think that where comics do well to be able to connect with the crowd. Like if they can get laughs out of people talking about some real life experiences, that's your beautiful connection. It's like, hey, I've dealt with this thing, but they present in a way that's to kind of like poke fun at it, like the what I mentioned earlier, viewing the absurdity and adversity. So that's part of like, why stand-up comedy in some sense is a thing, why it's out there, and we have that. And when people share, you know why we have that art, the art of comedy. um there was something else I was going to share that I wanted to touch on, but oof. mm. But that was just, again, I was just talking about just how the importance of just transmuting, being able to turn your life situations that can suck, but have it so that I think having the ability to allow life situations to build you up is a very powerful skill to develop and exercise, a muscle to exercise. You know, one of the things that the author says is like, if you haven't before, start now to work on your humor muscle. Provided, of course, you're in that mental state where you're able to. And if not, seek some help and support. Don't leave yourself out. Don't deny yourself the support and help that you need, because everybody can use some help. Even I have, I'm sharing all this, and I'm sharing the things that I share on this podcast. And I'll never say, I'll never turn down some help. If I haven't, just, of course, I'm not. Sometimes I have moments where perhaps my pride and stuff can get in the way, but generally, I'm always trying to be receptive to help, try to ask for it. But hey, I need help with this, and not assume and stuff like that, not make assumptions or anything like that. That would say, oh, like that would tell me, oh, I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to bother people or anything like that. So I feel like I'm kind of jumped all over the place here, but let's see, where am I? I'm looking at my little notes here, my little bullet points that I kind of want to talk about here. Um, let's see here. Yeah. So I guess going towards the end of the episode, definitely I think for is I guess one of the steps to be able to work on that inviting some play, some lightness to humor skills, to lighten up, if you will. I think a lot of it can start from a place of like just being easy on ourselves and forgiving ourselves for the things that we feel. And I think it's good to tap into things that can put a smile on our face, that can genuinely make us laugh, you know, whether it's like making a silly goofy face, or if you're kind of crafty or like or you got some graphic design skills, kind of copy, like take a picture of yourself and then put it like a nice graphic and make something silly that so when you look at it, or even like in like the author, if you look at the cover of this book, I'll actually share in the show notes. I'm actually going to put a link to the book itself. So if you're interested in getting more information, you can, actually looking at the book, I want to share it as a resource and then give to you. But anyway, I was talking about the here on like on the cover of the book. Like another thing you could do is like I had purchased like a clown nose, because like the author has a picture of him holding like a paper airplane, and he has like a clown nose on, and he's got like a silly goofy face he's made, and and that's just again, it's like a powerful symbol of just like what can help us not take ourselves too serious. Again, take our life situation serious, because that it's like this balance, right? It's like knowing when to get serious and then knowing when to just have some play and fun. Because a lot of what life's about and living with mastery is just integrating and practicing balance, right? It's like this beautiful practice, and it's not about perfection. It's about just developing yourself. It's just like it's, again, it's like a muscle. It's not like a end all be all or just like a stop point, like okay then I um like even like when I look at masters of their crafts, whatever it is, be it some kind of movement or a dance or something, they still practice. Everybody. So it's always a constant practice, and it's like, and I say this to emphasize that you're not behind. If you have thoughts that come up, you're not behind. It's never too late to start now, to just work on those humor skills. And so, and I think, part of what to be like, there's this saying like to be a master of situations. When I've read books and stuff, and the people that I am involved with in my spiritual work and stuff like that, it's like that saying, like being a master of your situation. It's being able to let those situations to make that decision to allow them to build you up. It's like, I'm gonna, you know what, I'm like, it's like, man, I'm having these terrible experiences and it sucks. And I could probably say this crying or just stuff like that, it's just like, or angry. But in the midst of that, I would say for myself, right, it's just, but I'm gonna make it through. I feel XYZ, whatever, top down, whatever, bottom left, whatever, or left, right, etc. I'm gonna make it through. And if you can feel and make that decision within yourself to just say, hey, I'm gonna make this a practice to lighten up. I want to commit to lightening up in my daily endeavors. That will take you far. Just making that daily commitment. And there's always going to be challenges, and there's always going to be situations where like, oh man, didn't do such a good hot job of lightening up this today or something, and that's okay. This is where I mentioned to go easy on yourself, because we're all doing our best. Many of us are doing the best that we know how. The very important thing to have patience. That's another thing I would add to the mix on the humor journey. And so, if you made it this far, like I said, I mentioned some things that I personally take away from it. There might be things that you might take from away from it from reading the book. So that's why in the show notes, if you check out the show notes for this episode, I'll post a link to where you can find the book that I've just shared and talked about. If you want to be able to get to that place of, how to build humor skills, because one of the things that I appreciate about this book, he shares a lot of techniques, and the way he shares it and communicates is like, you don't have to, like, this is not the ultimate blueprint, or you have to do every single exercise, because he lists a lot of exercises. It's a lot. But rather he's like, pick the ones that call to you, pick the ones that resonate with you, the ones that you feel like you can work with, even if it's just one thing, one exercise, just uno, boom, then you're good. So I'm definitely appreciative of my friend giving me this book, and I'm definitely gonna hold on to it until perhaps may need to reread it again to remind myself, or if sense the need to be able to gift it to somebody else who may need it more than me. I'll probably do that too. It's always good to pass on stuff, and information, knowledge, wisdom, and stuff like that. That's why I got this podcast here. Because I want to help you out. I want to help people. That's part of my own calling and what I came here for, and I'm gonna keep at it, and I'm gonna do it having fun. I'm gonna do it working on myself day in and day out, connecting with people, doing all these things, having these experiences, all the nine, embracing life, and it's and everything that when what my life has for me, and I hope that you can embrace what your life is there, for you, to be able that's embrace everything in your life that's there for you, because I firmly believe that it is available in all our own unique in our own lives. There's a lot of support available to us to help us overcome. So, yeah, like I said, feel free to check out that book if you want to get into the practical, which is, I highly encourage, because especially, living practically, definitely, I care about a lot, and I think it's important too. But again, just sharing, talking about this important thing, because I'm telling you, man, like, it can be very easy to take oneself so serious. I feel like a lot of us do it in our own ways, and I know I do. So, and I was just inspired to just share this, especially coming out of the festival. I feel very nourished and light and stuff like that. And just that festival experience that I had gone reminded me of that, the importance of fun, play, and just tapping into a childlike part, because it's like no child will ever take themselves serious. It's just like they just want to have fun and just want to enjoy things, create, just like all the things, all the positive qualities, you name it. There's a lot of them. Just thinking of a few examples. So, and yeah, I'm just looking at this to see if there's anything else I have before closing off this episode here. Um, and um, and I guess one thing I want to say is that, part of another reason why I think it's important that to give a sense of a picture of like humor skills. I think I shared it earlier about, all this to say, this is a healthy way of going about being able to build a healthy relationship with ourselves, because when we can do that, that really opens us up to a lot of blessings, a lot of good things in life. It can be really enriching and just great. Just got to work on that based relationship with the self, and definitely developing this muscle, this humor skill will pay you in dividends, so to speak, years to come. So take that time, my friend. If you haven't thought about it, consider it, or invite more play, joy, laughter in your life. Please do so, because now I'm understanding more how laughter is truly medicine. It really is. It's just, yeah, like I said, I recommend reading the book. Like I've got so much out of it. Like I said, I didn't even scrape everything that there's a lot more probably did, I got out of the book that I'm not even talking about here. And this episode's already long as it is. Jesus. Oh, woo. All right. So you know what? I'm gonna just leave it here. If anything else, just check out the book. And so, if you made it this part of the episode, again, I just want to thank you so much for your precious time and attention. And I hope you got something out of it. I really, truly, if anything resonates with you, if it's just one thing, anything that you can take out of this, then I know I did my part. And please take it with you, cultivate it, nourish that seed, and just like let it grow, let it thrive, let it blossom within you, so you blossom and grow and have all the great things and have the best that your life has to offer you, because you deserve it. So I'm your host, Alvin Cepeda, signing out for this week's episode. And as always, take care, my dear friend.